Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
What's up, Coach? Are you looking for a way to elevate your off-season skill development? Well, look no further. With the Bology app, you can build a workout with our library or create your own content. Send that workout to your players, and then your players complete the workout by recording their session on their phones. You can monitor and encourage competition with our leaderboards for every workout. Bology offers player development solutions in the palm of your hands. Get your team started today by going to bology.com for more info.
Well, Coach, you get to train, and one thing I didn't know, it was about your college background. You know, not only that did you play, but then also you were at Boise State, Nebraska, and Weber State, and so didn't know about that. But getting to train so many amazing players and be around high achievers, I'm sure you could share some of their daily habits. But I'd love to know your daily habits and how you attack every day.
Yeah, that's something I'm still working on, and I think it's kind of ever, evolving as we grow and mature and get older, and wiser, hopefully as well.
Yeah.
We come up with different habits. I'd say when I was younger, especially coaching college when I was at Weber State, or then I went to the Oklahoma City Thunder for a year. I wasn't as intentional about habits, and I think that's the most important thing. Not so much like what your habits are, but how intentional you are about them. And I use that same word a lot in player development and define it for players. Simply it's defined being deliberate and doing things on purpose. So what are those habits that I'm going to be deliberate about and the things that I'm going to do on purpose? It was as simple as one thing when I was coaching college. I would just try to go for a run every day or exercise. But now it's been so important to me, so vital to my success with players or my success as a leader or as a communicator to just have myself in a very, very good place. And one phrase that I try to build off of is it starts with how I start. So all of my habits, I want to start them, based on how I want to start my day or how I'm going to start a workout and that type of preparation. And the three biggest things, I've shared these a little bit when I speak publicly, but I want to be able to read, to like fill my mind, whether that's with a devotional in the morning. Sometimes I could cheat now, and reading is listening to a podcast, maybe on a walk or an audiobook, that way.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of cheating, but reading is one. The next one is moving my body. I've read and studied a lot of Tony Robbins stuff and kind of, just the biochemistry of our body and how you move or how you warm players up. But just one thing I've actually been doing lately is I've been walking for at least an hour a day because I think I'm kind of a high speed, high performance individual. And so it's like run, 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 go, go, go. And when you go for a walk and you walk a long ways, you have to walk back the other way. There's like no hurry up, to this thing. So reading, and then again, moving my body, which is now walking. And then the last thing, the habit, and I'm really trying to get better at this right now. And I used to feel super uncomfortable about it faith-wise, just sharing any type of my faith, which I know you have a faith and you're a believer as well. But we all screw up or we've all sinned. So I've always thought as a coach or a leader, man, until my life's perfect, I can't share anything like this. And that's not true, as we know. So the one thing I've been trying to do way, way more, I've always been someone who prays, but I really want to pray for those I'm leading. And I've been tweeting it more and more, but pray for your players, pray for your family, just being intentional and deliberate about who you're praying for and what you're praying for them about. Those three habits right now are really not always just putting me in a good place, but one thing I'm fighting for as an individual and as a leader is they're starting to center me more. And whenever you're centered, you could focus more on what's most important, what you're trying to get done. And then you're able to say no to those things that could hurry you up, speed you up, or even distract you from what you're trying to be centered on.
There's a lot of golden nuggets right there. I love that you brought up the intentional word, because I would imagine you see it there. You probably see so many players that are so talented physically and maybe even have some skill, but the intentionality to not just their game, but maybe their preparation and maybe how they live their life, that's off. Would you say that's maybe a big difference between some of those that man, we watch on TV and we hear, and some that maybe are good enough, but we never hear their names.
Yeah, Matt, that's just not a big difference. Most of the time right now, what I'm finding is that is the main difference. Like if you want to go from good to great or great to elite, our player development philosophy and my player development philosophy that I've had, even from back at Weber, is you got to be great at what you're good at. So knowing those things that you're good at and maximizing them. But going back to what you just said, if players don't have that intentionality or that clarity in their game, or in their habits or their development, it's so freaking hard for them to separate themselves from the competition or to get themselves to their highest level. And I'll give you a great example. We just had the Formula Zero camp. You know, Dame Lillard and I put it on,
Yep.
and we invite 15 top college players, and 10 of those guys are like legit first or second round picks, probably. And we invite 15 high school players. And again, 10 of them are probably legit first or second round picks. There was a kid, super talented. I mean, athletic, tall. It was, Matt, this is unbelievable. You asked a question because he talked to me during the middle of camp and he said, Phil, I don't know what I need to really do in my workouts. I'm still trying to find my game or what I'm trying to. He
Wow.
doesn't have that clarity of who he is and who he's not. And just
It's
like me,
amazing how he got to that level, still having that question. That's incredible.
But when you look at him, it's actually not because he's 6'10". He
Okay.
could jump out of the gym. He could run like crazy.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, we're talking top, 10% talent
Yeah.
here, athletically and size wise. And just
Mm.
like me, whether I'm speaking to a company right now or a bunch of entrepreneurs or basketball trainers or trying to get myself better, I need to know who I am and who I'm not. So this kid
Yeah.
had told me that, and I'm like, well, yeah, let's define your game. Are you a pick and pop guy? Are you a rim running guy? Are you a create off the dribble guy or create off the catch type of guy? And let's start maximizing those. And here's what's freaking nuts. We have a scout that works with us for Formula Zero, and he breaks down all these kids' games. He used to be an NBA scout. He's phenomenal at this. And he gave a report on each kid, and he sends it right after camp. On this kid, and he didn't know we had this conversation. He literally wrote, he doesn't know who he is and what he's good at. He doesn't know what he should be doing and not should. He said floats and doesn't float with his effort, floats with his performance. One game he's trying to shoot pick and pops. The next game he's running to the rim. And I'm just like, man, imagine how much we could help this kid if we just give him clarity and a plan and even teach him how to be a little more, like you said, intentional with his habits.
That intentionality seems like it might lead to, identity, like figuring out who you are. Like you said, you mentioned like being great at what you're good at, and
Mm-hmm.
and continuing to work on those things. I don't know. Then you hear like another camp of about weaknesses,
Yeah.
and how do you bring those up? So for a high school coach that has a lot of high school players that sometimes more weaknesses than what they're really, really good at. How do you balance that from only maximizing the things or working on the things that they already do well, but bringing
Yeah.
up the weaknesses?
Matt, this is why I wanted to do this with you. For one, you're phenomenal. And like we talked about earlier, you've done this over 200 times now. But also, I coached 2 years of high school before coaching college. So I was a JV coach and assistant varsity coach. But then the second thing of, why I wanted to do this, I love the state of Texas. When I was at Weber and Boise, it was my recruiting areas, Dallas and Houston. And there are so many freaking good coaches in Texas. Like it's sickening how many good coaches you all got. And I know you get athletic periods and more, stuff than a lot, but you guys do a heck of a job. So with that though, strengths versus weaknesses. Here's what I think. If you want to go from good to great or great to elite, you got to maximize your strengths. And I always use the example of Damian Lillard, who I still train. I'm here in Portland with him now. Worked with him since he was in college. He had a few great skills like shooting the basketball, playing pick and roll, and kind of change pace, change direction, or finishing at the rim. And he was really good at those. So we maximized them to make them great. However, even when he was in college at the low major, mid major level, or even coaching these high school kids, what we've done is we've come up with 5 different skill set absolutes. And I talk about them a lot of the clinics or on our online workshops and different things we do. And what we do, and I think players really understand this. And Matt, I don't care if it's high school or if it's college or the NBA, we could clearly communicate these absolutes to players, these 5 absolutes, and then they've all been in school. I have them grade themselves on it. And if they're not at least getting a grade of a C, which means you're average, which means you're adequate at that skill, you're not good enough anyway. So we want to find those skills, develop those skills that may be weaknesses, but what we have to be willing to live with, whether a high school JV coach or an NBA skill development trainer, if a kid's at a C and that's good enough for his role and where he's at, we need to leave that. But maybe a kid's at a B in another one and we know we could get that to an A. Let's get that to an A. And not to jump too much off the subject here, but we're just obviously you went to Baylor, and I go out there and I consult and speak with a bunch of different Division I's or high schools or colleges now, and talk a lot about player development, culture development, staff development. And I think what's missing now, whether you want to improve strengths or whether you want to improve weaknesses, and I've really been working on this a ton as a coach the last 3 years, asking players performance-based questions. How do you feel when you do this? Where would you rate yourself when you do this? Who's your favorite player? Just these type of questions that let you understand their lens of where they see themselves, the reality or of the non-reality of where they're really living, as a player. Because one thing we'll do, and I'll kind of close the answer on this, but maybe it's like our 5 skill set absolutes, I've talked about this before, are ball handling, footwork, change pace, change direction, finishing at the rim, and shooting. So if you and I have a player at, Grapevine Christian, and we say, hey, and I'm your assistant, man, we ask that kid, hey, where are you at in change pace, change direction? What grade would you give yourself? A, B, C, D minus, B plus. And that kid's like, I'm an A. But Coach Matt says a C minus, and Coach Phil says a D plus. Well, we're going to have some communication and have some performance-based question and answers to get on the same page, or maybe even just add them all up and be like, all right, we add up these scores. Hey, brother, you're still not where you're supposed to be. So I know I kind of answered that in 2 parts. 1, with the absolutes and what we're trying to do and grading them. But then 2, getting those lines of communication open so the player could have a realistic sense of where he is and where he's trying to get to.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.